Get ready for a wild ride because we're about to go into the story of one of NASCAR's most legendary aero warriors, the Ford Torino Talladega. This beast of a race car was Ford's answer to the Dodge Charger, Daytona, and Plymouth Superbird. And let me tell you, it's got one heck of a story. From the wind tunnel to the winner's circle, the Torino Talladega was engineered to dominate, and that's exactly what it did. But the road to glory wasn't easy. There was controversy, rule changes, and pure grit that all played a part in making the Torino Talladega the stuff of legend. You won't believe the lengths Ford went to in order to make this car a winner. Stick around because we're going to peel back the sheet metal and show you how the Torino Talladega became one of NASCAR's most iconic aero warriors. Trust me, you don't want to miss this. Back in the late 1960s, NASCAR was really starting to heat up, with manufacturers pulling out all the stops to gain an edge on the track. Dodge and Plymouth had just unleashed their wind-cheating Charger, Daytona, and Superbird models. And Ford knew they needed to respond with something equally wild if they wanted to keep up. So the team at Ford got to work, poring over wind tunnel data and aerodynamic simulations to design a car that could slice through the air like a hot knife through butter. They started with the already slippery Torino body, but then added a massive extended nose cone, a tall rear spoiler, and a host of other aero tricks to make this thing as slippery as possible. The results were nothing short of amazing. In the wind tunnel, the Torino Talladega was able to achieve speeds over 200 miles per hour, completely blowing away the competition. Ford engineers were grinning from ear to ear, knowing they had a legitimate game-changer on their hands. Of course, getting all that aero magic to work on the racetrack was a whole other challenge. The Torino Talladega was a handful to drive at those high speeds, with twitchy handling and a tendency to get loose in the corners. But the Ford team put in the hours, dialing in the suspension and chassis setup to make this wild child a little more manageable. And when they unleashed the Torino Talladega on the NASCAR circuit, it was absolute domination. Drivers like David Pearson and Bobby Allison were racking up win after win, leaving the Dodge and Plymouth Aero cars in the dust. The Torino Talladega had arrived, and it was here to stay. All right, now that we've covered how the Torino Talladega came to be, let's talk about what it did on the racetrack. And let me tell you, this thing was an absolute beast. As soon as Ford unleashed the Talladega, it started dominating NASCAR left and right. Drivers like David Pearson and Bobby Allison were straight up smoking the competition, leaving those Dodge and Plymouth Aero cars in the dust. I mean, these Torino Talladegas were just so darn fast. All that work Ford put into the aerodynamics paid off big time, giving them a serious top speed advantage over the other cars. Pearson and Allison were routinely hitting speeds over 200 miles per hour on the big super speedways, leaving their rivals in the rearview mirror. And it wasn't just the raw speed that made the Talladega so dominant. Ford also nailed the handling and stability of this thing, making it super stable and predictable at those insane velocities. Drivers could really lean on the car and hustle it through the corners without it trying to swap ends on them. The results speak for themselves. The Torino Talladega just kept racking up win after win. Pearson took the championship in 1969, followed by Allison in 1972. These cars were the class of the field, no question. But it wasn't all smooth sailing, let me tell you. There were definitely some hairy moments out there on the track. I mean, running 200 miles per hour with a giant wing on the back? That'll get your heart pumping. Pearson and Allison had to really be on their game to keep these things pointed in the right direction. And of course, the other manufacturers weren't just going to sit back and let Ford dominate. They started throwing everything they had at the Torino Talladega, trying to find ways to slow it down or make it less competitive. There were all kinds of protests and rule changes that the Ford team had to navigate. But through it all, the Torino Talladega kept on winning. It was the king of the aero warriors, and nobody was taking that crown away. This car cemented Ford's legacy in NASCAR, and the legend of the Talladega lives on to this day. Things couldn't stay smooth sailing forever. This car stirred up all kinds of controversy in NASCAR. See, the other manufacturers weren't too thrilled to have Ford running away with victory after victory. I mean, can you blame them? They wanted a piece of that action too. So they started getting creative, trying to find ways to slow down or limit the Torino Talladega's performance advantage. One of the big things they went after was the car's wild aerodynamics. Those extended nose cones and towering rear wings were giving Ford a massive top speed boost, so the other teams started lobbying NASCAR to crack down on those aero mods. There were all kinds of heated debates and rule changes as they tried to rein in the Talladega's speed. Ford wasn't about to go down without a fight. Their engineers went into overdrive, finding new ways to tweak the Talladega's design and stay one step ahead of the competition. They'd come up with some crazy ideas like adding little winglets and vortex generators to keep that air flowing just right. And it wasn't just the Aero that caused problems. The Torino Talladega's sheer dominance on the track led to some serious grumbling from the other teams too. I mean, when you've got Pearson and Allison lapping the field, it's bound to ruffle some feathers, you know? There were all kinds of protests and appeals, with teams trying to get the Talladega disqualified or hit with penalties. Ford had to fight tooth and nail to keep their cars legal and on the track. It got pretty heated at times, I tell you. Through it all, the Torino Talladega kept on winning. Ford's engineering brilliance and the driver's skill behind the wheel was just too much for the competition to overcome. The Talladega became the stuff of legend, the ultimate aero warrior that refused to be tamed. Sure, it stirred up a whole lot of controversy, but in the end, the Torino Talladega's legacy as one of NASCAR's most dominant and innovative race cars was cemented forever. We've traced the wild and crazy origins of the Torino Talladega. We've seen how it dominated the NASCAR circuit, and we've even dived into all the controversies that surrounded this legendary aero warrior. But now, let's talk about the lasting impact this car has had on the sport. When you look back at the history of NASCAR, the Torino Talladega stands out as a real game changer. Ford's innovative approach to aerodynamics forever changed the way manufacturers thought about designing their race cars. Before the Talladega, aero was an afterthought. But after this car hit the track, it became a top priority. And the Talladega's influence didn't stop there. The way Ford's engineers kept pushing the boundaries, finding new ways to squeeze more speed out of the car, that became a blueprint for how teams approached engineering in NASCAR. They realized that innovation and grit could give you a real competitive edge. But it's not just the technical side of things where the Torino Talladega left its mark. This car also captured the imagination of fans in a way few others have. I mean, come on, 200 miles per hour top speeds, wild aerodynamic styling, and a whole lot of controversy, that's the stuff of legend. Heck, even today, the Talladega is still regarded as one of the most iconic and beloved race cars in NASCAR history. Anytime you see one of these things at a car show or museum, it draws a crowd. People just can't get enough of that classic Ford styling and the sheer power this thing had. And you know what? The legacy of the Torino Talladega lives on in the sport today. You can see its influence in the way NASCAR approaches aerodynamics and engineering, and in the lasting popularity of big, fast, and flashy race cars. This car set a new standard, and the entire industry is still feeling the effects. So while the Torino Talladega may have faded from the track, its impact on NASCAR will never be forgotten. This was a car that pushed the boundaries, stirred up drama, and left an indelible mark on the sport. And that, my friends, is why the Talladega will always be remembered as one of the true greats. What do you think about this car? Let's have your thoughts in the comment section. Thank you for sticking till the end. Subscribe to Muscle Car Enthusiasts for more legends from the golden age of American horsepower.